I'm going to pick up this milk truck and throw it. I need you to go ahead and do that too.
It's as if they dug him up from the grave, raped him, and then took a picture and put it as your desktop background.
A lot of things are starting to make sense now that I'm drinking booze.
Hello and welcome to the Church of Awesome.
The church to end all churches.
We're glad you could join us for our services today. Presiding is the Archangel Michael.
Yeah.
Conducting is me, Demi-Pope Chris. And we also have Cardinal Imam Spencer, son of Hagar.
Peace be upon him.
And Bill. Today our discussion will be about indoctrination.
A dictionary definition that I just looked up and kind of like is teaching someone to accept doctrines uncritically. Now, how would you define critical thinking, Chris?
Well, kind of what you said, where you don't just accept a claim, that a claim has to have something supporting it. So, uncritically is just, if someone tells you something, you just accept it. Critical thinking is that you think about why something is true rather than just accepting it's true. So you look for the underpinnings of the statement. You try and work out if that statement is actually true and to what confidence level you can say it.
Yeah, I remember when we were in high school, there was one like the mission statement, the 6 things that high school wanted to teach its students, and one of them was, a self-directed learner, and I forget a bunch of them, but one of them was to think critically. And I remember at the time saying, bullshit. There's nothing about our education system, it's certainly not there, that that wants you to think critically, because they want you to sit in the class, absorb everything that they're saying so that you can regurgitate it out on a standardized test. Mm-hmm. That's all you do in public school, certainly in the United States. I can't talk for anyone.
And yet, for some reason in California, they're so bad at doing that they have to lower the standards on the exit exam out of high school because everybody was failing.
Oh, that is our future.
Well, and in high school, I took some advanced placement classes and some regular track classes, and it was astonishing. Anytime that I would take one of the non-advanced placement classes, it was just that. There was no thought going on, and the students, the teacher would say something, and then the students would repeat it back. It was just, it's like they were trying to force feed the information in. They were just assuming that the students weren't interested. But advanced placement classes, the students in there are, they're proactive enough to get into those programs. And so within those classes, you do see a lot of, back and forth. There's critical thinking there.
Is that what you'd call a self-selecting group?
I think it has more to do with expectancy theory, that if you were a teacher and assigned to an advanced placement class, a lot is expected of these students and a lot is expected of you. So you rise to the occasion. But if you go into a classroom saying, oh, these are the dumb kids, you expect them to perform poorly, and so they do, just because then we can get away with, nothing is expected of us. It's the soft bigotry of lowered expectations.
There you go. So I remember, in most of the classes, it was just like, here's a bunch of stuff, and if it's a history class, here's a bunch of lies we made up that sound pretty, and I want you to remember this, but there was one teacher that I had for math. It was like geometry and algebra I took with this guy, and it was really cool because he would tell you stuff, but he'd do a brilliant job of explaining it, and he would answer questions, really well, and I remember one time I asked him, I think we were talking about imaginary numbers, and I said, this is all kind of weird. Are you telling me that I can take this really funky number and use it to get a practical answer? And he said, yes, and explained how. It was really cool. It's not at all what I expected from the square root of an iota. What? Okay, and then it's negative something something. And it was really cool because he actually took the time and cared, and I actually thought critically, going, well, I'm not just going to trust that this equation does this and accept it without question. I questioned it because it was weird, and I was rewarded for it. It was really cool. But that was definitely the exception rather than the rule, certainly in public school. But the word indoctrination is the act of teaching someone to accept doctrine uncritically. It's like forming a lifestyle of if you go from these sources, everything we say is the gospel truth, and there's no need to think about it because God's perfect and all the answers have already been figured out. You don't even need to try to look it up, and you can trust us.
Yeah. Well, when it comes, you're talking about math, which is math is kind of a great example because you go into a class and you say 1 + 1 = 2, and you don't talk about why 1 + 1 = 2, and it's a very hard proof to make and to understand. So you just have to accept it at first. But the longer you're in math, the deeper you go into the structure of number theory and why 1 + 1 = 2. So there is eventually a kind of a payoff with math and with a lot of subjects. You kind of have to accept the rules at the outset until you understand how they operate, and then you can go a level deeper and understand why those things are so.
And I think that's the key to real critical thinking is that you don't just jump to rash conclusions based off the first thing you hear.
Exactly.
Right. Anybody can tell you anything, and it's like, well, let me check that out. Let me look into it myself.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have experts in these fields, and we can't become experts in all these things, so we have to take a lot of people's word for it, and I have to assign values to different people's opinions. So we take all of those people that are doing that, their opinions into account, and we don't think that we can overturn that at the same time. So there's a balance.
I have this list that I found that I kind of liked. It's basically brainwashing techniques, a how-to guide, and
we should learn some of these.
So listeners, prepare to be brainwashed.
Okay, I'll go through them and then I'll. Okay, so we have assault on identity. You are not who you think you are. Guilt. You are bad. Self-betrayal. Agree with me that you are bad. Breaking point. Who am I? Where am I? And what am I supposed to do? Leniency. I can help you. Compulsion to confession. You can help yourself. Channeling of guilt. This is why you're in pain. Releasing of guilt. It's not me, it's my beliefs. Progress and harmony. If you want, you can choose good. And final confession and rebirth. I choose good. So you have assault on identity, guilt, self-betrayal, breaking point, leniency, compulsion to confession, channeling of guilt, releasing of guilt, progress and harmony, and final confession. Like the rebirth into the new cult. We go with church, assault on identity. They have one of the things. Well, they'll have an unquestioned leader. That's a very common thing for a cult to have. They esteem one person above all the norms of which you would judge a human being.
You mean like Jesus?
Or the Pope, or
someone who's exempt from the
Joseph
rules, basically.
Pretty much, and you're expected to believe him and not criticize him ever, and believe everything he says. And then they'll have an insider versus outsider mentality. There's an us versus them always, and they're the poor souls who are lost, and we are the lucky ones who get the gospel. We're the chosen people, right? And on a and on a personal level, they will attack you directly. Your identity is tied to this organization. Yeah, I love that. It says
he's doing the bullshit roll call.
You are not who you think you are. I thought it was an excellent way of putting it. They say you are a child of God. You're not a human being. You are a son of the big deity.
Yeah, and it's they hide it by saying that you are better than what you. I mean, they are saying the same thing. You're not who you think you are, but it's you are better than you think you are. So people like to think that they're better than they actually are. We like to tell ourselves, like, oh yeah,
it's good for the self-esteem.
Yeah, because I'm better than this. I don't have to be constrained by these things that seem so,
Well, yeah, I exist on a metaphysical plane, and I am a child of God, and I'm special, and there's a purpose and plan for me. I get that, but simultaneously, they're beating you down to a point where you have almost no self-esteem at all by saying you are guilty. You are inherently flawed. That you always will have this demon with you.
And that breaking down of the self is pretty much common in all brainwashing. Without it, you really can't mold somebody the way you want them. Because
Well, yeah, it's the same thing as like they do that in like boot camp in the
They do that in the
military.
military like crazy.
Self-help seminars do that a lot. It's just or team building exercises tend to be like that.
Building exercise 99. Yeah, it's without breaking you down to nothing, they can't build you up how they want you, because something's going to be left of your preconceived notions of reality or whatever.
Well, because change is hard for anybody.
Yeah.
So if you want to get someone to change a lot of times it's easier to start from scratch.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought the step that I never really thought of before was the self-betrayal. It's where you realize within yourself that you're actually flawed and that you need help, that you're actually broken.
Well, it's giving them the power to define you.
Yes.
That's original sin, right?
Compulsion to confession. Have you confessed to your bishop?
Or to Cardinal Imam Spencer.
Son of Hagar.
You're sad because of sin. All bad things in life are due to sin. That reminds me of the Confucius saying, all pain is caused by desire, to end pain and desire. All bad feelings are caused by sin, which is, it's interesting the way that they do that, because it's associating everything bad with non-Jesus-y things and everything good with Jesus-y things.
Yeah.
Isn't that convenient?
I just use Jesus-y as a word.
Yeah. Well, and people like to think that they know. I mean, we like to know. We like to not. We don't like to not have the answers. So it's the problem of evil. Like, why is there evil, whether it's natural evil or evil in humans, whatever. So when you can explain it by saying, yeah, good is this, bad is this. It's very cut and dry, very black and white. And that's comforting to people, because they say, if I want the good, I only have to do this. But the fact is, life is more complicated than that. I mean, good things happen, bad things happen. There's not necessarily a correlation between anything. Yeah. For fuck's sake, do you have to die right now?
It's very inconvenient for me.
Just so everybody out there in podcast world knows, it's hot as balls in here. So we had to leave the window open. And Mikey lives in a really bad neighborhood.
That's a fire.
I hope my
engine.
car is safe.
Oh, let's see. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to give us time, energy, money, and convert your friends. That's the releasing
10%
of
at a
guilt.
time.
Yeah, that is interesting, because that's the way I always explained it to people I was trying to convert, is that, God, I used to say this, and it's total bullshit, that God never asked us to be perfect. He just wants us to do our very best, and Jesus will take us the rest of the way. Well, except for the part in the New Testament where Jesus says, be perfect, even as I am perfect. So we actually
Which is really
have,
conceited. And isn't vanity a sin?
we have been...
Well, if he's just stating the facts, then.
That's fine. That's the way I used to justify it too. Yeah. I've done all of these apologetics on the inside, but we have been given the commandment to be perfect. So it's impossible to do what we've been asked to do, and the whole concept of, well, what's perfect? What does that even mean? And anything short of this unattainable goal is sin. So therefore, you're broken, and it's
really easy
constant.
to be perfect when the definition of perfect is what you are. So when Jesus is like, be perfect like me.
Yeah, see, that's one of the things that I never found very impressive about Jesus, is because he did this amazing task. But yeah, he had superpowers, and he had an angel strengthening him. Yeah, it probably hurt, I'll bet. Of course, it didn't really happen. But, it was always like, well, yeah, if I had those powers too, then I'd be able to do that same thing. Like, he went there for a purpose and was given special powers to do so. So why is that impressive?
Well, that's like Superman coming down to you and saying like, hey, I'm going to follow me to this place. I'm going to fly, and you fly like me.
Yeah.
We'll both get there.
I'm going to pick up this milk truck and throw it. I need you to go ahead and do that too. Well, you can't do that? You really have a lot of work to do.
I need you to go ahead.
It appears that you are fine.
Do that.
You need to go to the gym and lift weights for the rest of your life. And that's a perfect analogy.
Be therefore super, even as I am super.
So super, yet couldn't come up with a decent fucking name.
Well, he's the super man.
Well, he's kind of one of the first modern superheroes.
Yeah, don't get him started.
I'm not really going there. I just,
If you get him started to talk about Superman,
Yeah.
Next thing you know, we'll be on to Star Trek.
Yeah, once you
all downhill from there.
once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny.
And now it's time for Communing with the Spirits. So, I am communing with the spirit of Clynelish 14 Year Scotch whiskey.
What am I communing with? It's a bottle of something.
Well,
Today, you and I are both communing with Talisker 10-year-old. It's from the Isle of Skye. It's quite peppery, fiery, quite exciting.
I agree. It's pretty good.
It literally made me come in my pants.
And that's what it's all about. This is why we come to church, to come inappropriately in our pants on chairs.
That's right.
You imagine how that would go off of the pews?
Oh.
I think that's what they call them, pews.
Yeah,
Pew, pew, pew.
this would be why they don't pad the pews with
Yeah.
anything, right?
That's right.
And
they
it's also at that
vinyl
angle,
pews.
right? So that it kind of seeps back into the whole crevice.
Oh.
A lot of things are starting to make sense now that I'm drinking booze.
Helps.
Booze, helping the world make sense.
Under the progress and harmony thing, don't you feel happy now that you know all the essential truths for salvation? Love that. Whenever you have questions, well, don't worry. These things aren't essential to your salvation. You just need to pay tithing and do as you're told without questioning it. And
It sounds like a lot of hand waving. You're like, well, yeah, that's kind of, but look at here.
Yeah, but what about all these fraudulent things about your books of scripture that are easily proved? Those things are mysteries. They'll be revealed later.
What about these parts of the Bible that say literally the exact opposite thing?
Well, those things aren't translated perfectly. Yeah. Those things are older, inferior translations, and the truths that we have revealed today are the ones you should be going with. And besides, it's not essential to your salvation anyway. So,
Well, the favorite
that's pretty much a meeting I had with a bishop once. That's what happens every time you start asking questions.
the favorite one I ever heard was something my dad said to a fairly newly converted member who was kind of laughing and saying, "Yeah, I really don't know much about the history of the church." He says, "Well, it's not that important. It's only important that you believe it."
What?
It's important that you believe it, but don't know what you're
You
believing.
don't need to know what it is. You just need to know that it's true.
It's not of serious consequence that it actually is true. What's more important is that you think it is true.
I believe every word of the Quran that I've ever read.
I mean, the parts I've read have mostly been, ironically, all of the passages that condemn exactly what Al Qaeda's doing. Like, because that's what I studied that in college, where it's like, okay, the Quran actually says this, and this is the way that the organization behaves. Like, well, yes, don't kill civilians, don't, all of these things. Like, well, interesting how much street cred they have, considering they're violating their own religion on
Well, I
almost
mean,
every
I'm
front.
sure the IRA was using the Bible to cover up some of their stuff too. It's just,
Oh, the Crusaders did it too.
yeah, the Crusaders.
Yeah, same shit, different band.
That's
Yeah.
right. Religion kills puppies. We went over this before. And people too, apparently.
Because I remember from Psych 101 that when like a 3 or 4 year old kid sits in front of you in the TV, it's because they don't realize that you can't see through them. Their perception is kind of all they see and understand. They assume that you see.
Well,
what
they
see.
definitely. I mean, kids are definitely more susceptible to this kind of stuff than adults.
Because you're weaving in what you want to teach them in with them just learning about the world.
Yeah.
So they learn about that. That's why you get people who think that taking down a Christmas tree is against Jesus, because you learn about Christmas, you learn about Santa at the same time you learn about Jesus. You learn about Christmas trees and it's all Christmas. It's all just tied together. So when you take one of those things, it's all tied together. So when you have this whole religious thing just pervading every part of your life and just interlaced with your view of the world, then it becomes inextricable.
Well, I do think that your ability to learn and your ability to process this information does affect it in that, before you're into formal operations, which is the final stage where you think like an adult, which, by the way, doesn't happen until your late teens, early 20s. which is why high school kids are so dumb. Before that, you can't really think things through all the way. You know, you're kind of, especially in the early stages, pre-operational and all that kind of stuff. It's like you're basically a dog. You know, you're doing basically classical conditioning at first. And that's infants. When you start getting a little older, you know, you start salivating when the bell rings. Mm-hmm. Kind of the Pavlovian operant conditioning. And if that's the only way you can learn, you have no ability for critical thought. And so you have to be indoctrinated by this stuff because you don't know any other way to learn other than believe everything you're told. Which is why kids are shattered when they learn about the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus or Jesus.
Spoiler alert.
I don't know if I ever actually believed in Easter Bunny. I definitely believed in Jesus and Santa Claus. I don't remember a trauma related to not believing in Santa anymore.
My brother told me. I was like 5.
I think
5 or 6.
I eventually figured it out on my own rather than someone telling me when I was way too young to accept that. Uh-huh. But you never believed, right?
Well, I remember with the whole Santa thing that I'm like, something seems fishy about this. So one year we left out like little surveys for Santa to fill out. It's just like, how old are you? And like asked him just a bunch of questions. And then the next year asked him to fill it out again with the same questions to see and just like, I can disprove Santa, but yeah.
I think the folks just knew the jig was up.
But I mean, at the same time, you can't go like, Mom, Dad, I know there's no Santa, because then they'll just go, okay, you don't get any presents. Yeah.
Well, you have to play along with the farce then.
You do. Like I said, my brother told me because his like first grade teacher decided that their class was old enough, and so she told her school class there's no Santa. Probably pissed off a shit ton of parents.
Yep.
But then what's my brother do? Dude, there's no Santa. What? Bullshit.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what you said as a 5-year-old in a Mormon household.
No, I pretty much, yeah. I cursed like a sailor when I was a kid because I learned it all from my dad.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, well, because what you do in like most Sunday schools and primaries and stuff, it's almost part of it's in a classroom setting. In the Mormon primary, you have half of it's in a classroom setting where they're teaching like any other Sunday school, where they read from a fairy tale book and tell you it's actually true. And then the other part is you're in what's called sharing time, or you're learning songs that they make you sing in front of the entire congregation in a few weeks. And the adults that are there hold up the poster boards with all the lyrics on them and just make you sing the songs over and over and over again, and often associate them with little dorky hand signals and stuff like that.
Well, you're building a culture. It's a lot of religions do this, where you raise the children with the beliefs and the culture at the same time, so that the culture is part of your cultural identity, and it's interlaced with these religious beliefs that aren't necessarily related to it.
They make it related to it to make it more salient in your life.
To make it more part of your identity.
Exactly.
Well, to make it social suicide to stop believing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, and how is that not a cult? Another thing in like cults and indoctrination centers, you have control of information, flow of information within the group and within oneself eventually, if they do it right, where some information is verboten and some things you just shouldn't think about. And I mean, if you're already not accepting things critically, then you're going to say, well, I don't want to think about this because it's the ramblings of an apostate, or
just it conflicts with something that I already think I know.
You have mystical manipulation. If you put it all on a spiritual plane, the consequences get warped and can be made to be a lot bigger than they normally would be. If
yeah, like he masturbated. Oh man, that's gonna make a mess. To, oh man, you're gonna burn in hell.
Or if
and have a mess.
If you have a
mess,
yeah,
and have a hard time explaining those stains on your sheets to your mom.
Or if you have a friend that leaves the cult,
the bed.
instead of going, instead of another mind is freed and is leaving the matrix, you have my friend is doomed to an eternity of torment. But I love this person, but some of them you have to shun them and you never talk to them again, or you're concerned with the welfare of their soul, and it's something you take very seriously if you were a true believer.
Well, certainly your treatment of them is going to be different.
Yes.
From then on. I mean, every time you talk to them, you're going to feel like you're talking to a death row inmate.
Here's one I like. Doctrine over person. Members' personal experiences are subordinated to the sacred science, and contrary experiences must be denied or reinterpreted to fit the ideology of the group.
Oh, that's spot on, man. That's great. That's a good one.
It's like turkey pie.
Sacred experiences.
Turkey pot pie.
Yeah, you guys, how many times have you ever heard,
pudding.
I I got the impression to do this, and then I did it, and I moved my car, and the tree fell right where the car was.
Well, it's just like anytime you make a lucky guess, it's like, that was the spirit.
Yep.
And anytime you're just like, oh, this bad luck kind of happened to befall me, they're like, well, that's a warning sign to you.
Yes, it's confirmation bias at its best.
Yeah.
Dispensing of existence. The group has the prerogative to decide who has the right to exist and who does not. This is usually not literal, but means that those in the outside world are not saved, unenlightened, unconscious, and they must be converted to the group's ideology. If they do not join the group or are critical of the group, then they must be rejected by the members. Thus, outside world loses all credibility. In conjunction, should any member leave the group, he or she must be rejected also.
Well, I mean, that's what you were saying, insider-outsider mentality.
Yes.
That goes lockstep in with that. And just if your reality is dependent on... they teach you your identity and your reality. So if someone is coming in with a different identity or reality, then obviously they're not part of your world. They're not part of your reality. So they have to be wrong. So when someone comes in, like... That's one of the things about gay people that religious people tend to find threatening, is that their identity is something that should not be able to exist according to their worldview. So it's their very identity is threatened.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I believed it, so it was what I did, and I was very unilateral in the way that I thought. It's like, well, if you don't believe it, I'm still going to keep on believing it, and I'm going to do what I think is right. That's not really all that important to me what you think. And it's amazing how many
fit in.
Yeah, it's amazing how many friends I had considering what a dick I was.
Was?
I'm a different brand.
Different kind of dick.
I'm a schlong now.
You're an
Different kind of
archangel.
sense of tense.
I'm an arch dick, is that what you said?
Archangel. Yeah, arch dick works too.
Arch dick.
Arch dick angle. Angel. Whatever.
Get ready to rage with our fatwas of the week.
This week I will be declaring jihad on the Black Eyed Peas. You know who you are. Yes, unfortunately, we all know who you are. The reason why I hate them so much, besides consistently making really crappy music that I don't want to listen to, it got personal once they did Sergio Mendes' song, Más que Nada, one of my favorite songs ever. I downloaded it, thought I'd give it a shot, because, it's an awesome song, right? What they did to it. I'd have to show you on a doll.
We'll give you nightmares for the rest of your life.
Where they touched it, and it made me so mad because it was such hack bullshit. Where they have the beat that's really cool, and then they have them like rapping on top of it. So you have brilliance peppered with stupidity and really awful juvenile crap rap lyrics.
It's as if they dug him up from the grave, raped him, and then took a picture and put it as your desktop background.
That's a lot like what it felt like. It was in my car, so it felt like I got carjacked by a dead penis. That's what it felt like. And yeah, I'm not sure I'll ever be the same, but fuck them in the mouths.
Yeah, usually I don't like declaring jihad seriously on groups of people that are identifiable, but these people I will make an exception because I really would like for them to die.
But they don't have to worry because, like Islam, the Church of Awesome is a religion of peace.
Yeah, I have no intention of actually taking any real violent action against them.
We don't condone anything like that, but they need to fucking die.
Yeah.
They, who keeps giving them contracts? I mean,
Who keeps buying tickets to their shows?
are they popular? Like,
Yeah, for some reason.
Unfortunately, they are.
I mean, the Beastie Boys are popular a little too, like, and they're just fucking
Well, they have
awful.
skills, but
No, they don't.
the Black Eyed Peas, there's no argument that can be made for them.
There's no mitigating evidence.
There was no
with it.
justification for their existence.
All right. I'm going to declare jihad on I Can't Believe It's Not Butter spray. Really? I thought a spray bottle was full of butter? Have people just not eaten butter in the last, I don't know, 1,000 years?
This is how it comes, right?
It doesn't look like butter. It doesn't taste like butter. I can believe it's anything but butter.
I'm declaring jihad on Osama bin Laden. Wait, what? Oh, he is. He's dead. Oh,
Yeah.
Well, anyway, yeah, he's dead and he should be.
Good.
Because he's taken a cause that, I mean, you can look at what he's done and say, that's horrible. But then you listen to what he says, and it's just like, yeah, he's right about a lot of the things. A lot of the reasoning behind why he did acts of terrorism are sound. But you discredit your case when you go around committing acts of terrorism. The only good thing to come from all of that was that the IRA learned from the Taliban, hey, you don't get what you want by killing innocent civilians. You just get people to hate you.
Yeah, there's really no justification for terrorism itself. I mean, wasn't the IRA kind of fizzling out by the time Al Qaeda?
I know
really
mine
started
has been
taking-
ever since the economy took a downturn.
You what now?
But
My beef is with all the excitement that has been surrounding his recent death. I got just randomly out of the blue a text message saying, Osama bin Laden is dead. And I remember thinking, so? Because we've been losing the war on terrorism for over a decade now. It's kind of ridiculous to consider this like a victory. Like, if you think about it, Osama bin Laden's stated goals were to kill Americans, to terrorize the United States, to incite the United States into an asymmetrical war so that we would bankrupt ourselves and make us have a lower quality of life. All of these things he has succeeded in. So, by any objective measure, we are losing this war in lives and massive amounts of money. And by now, I mean, he's kind of just a figurehead. He doesn't really make any decisions, I don't think. And his death is ultimately meaningless unless that's the thing that makes us decide to pull out of these unethical, pointless, and criminogenic wars. So it's like everyone's getting really excited. It reminds me of right after 9/11 when everyone's like waving the flag and standing on the street corners, but you go up to any one of them and not one of them knew like the actual Pledge of Allegiance. It's just this phony bullshit patriotism that it's totally thoughtless. And it's like, well, you can wave a flag and you can say stuff. It's another just empty gesture. But it's like, okay, well, now that we've taken out the guy who financed and planned a big attack against us, let's reevaluate our stance on terrorism and what we're actually going to do about it, rather than, that's all we want, yeah, let's grandstand, and then keep on piling shitloads of money into wars that are doing awful things to everyone involved. It just boggles my mind that people are excited about this.
well, there was something to be said that we killed a mass murdering fuckhead.
Yes.
So
True.
that's a good thing.
I mean, yeah, and it's certainly a
And it
better...
has symbolic value too, because
It does.
The attack was largely symbolic. I mean, the death toll that wasn't as high as it could have been, or really, they could have done a lot more damage elsewhere, but it was symbolic.
Right, yeah, and that's one
And
of
this
their
is symbolic,
tactics. Yeah, I mean, and Bin Laden was a monster, but he's a monster that we created, by the way. Kind of like Saddam Hussein, but at least in that one I got to see him get hanged by his neck. Now, I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist, but I find it rather convenient that in the beginnings of election season, a big, high-profile target gets taken out that we don't get to see it. He gets mysteriously buried at sea and no photographs are released. I haven't really looked deep into the whole situation, but all of those things just kind of throw red flags at it.
I gotta
You've been
say-
listening to Fox News too much.
I gotta say,
Well,
I like how a year and a half before the election is now the beginning of the election season.
Oh, it is. It's people are
Well, as
starting to
of
declare-
like 3 years ago.
Well, and I was going to say, I'm like, this wouldn't be the expedient time to do so anyway.
No, he should have waited.
Yeah, if you really
Like
want to do it as a
year.
political statement,
You should have
would.
waited to fake this shit later.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also, I believe it was the same day that Hitler killed himself. Something like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know.
Well, and he certainly would, like, if they were going to fake it, then they would have done it in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Then,
I guess, I mean...
and they would have done it closer to elections.
Yeah, I don't know, and my
Or they would
point
have
is...
just filmed it in, like, the middle of Arizona, like they did with the moon landing, right?
Right. I mean, I don't know, but my point is that I don't care and that it doesn't really matter, I don't think. But that's just me.
No, I think it is a symbolic thing, and before you could say the war on terror doesn't have a clear end, but if you say, like, hey, we got the big bad guy. We get the... I know, even though he isn't functionally the big bad guy, he was the big bad guy.
And it's not that they're not using it that way at all. It's like, hey, we got this guy, now we got to keep fighting the war on terror.
Well, yeah, and it should be, we got this guy, now we can stop.
Yeah.
Now we can have our rights back.
Now, did it bother anybody else, like, to see how quickly our entire country could be basically incited to riot because of somebody getting killed? I mean, okay.
That didn't
I thought it
surprise
was-
me in the least, actually.
I thought it was a good thing that, you know.
I've seen more
got
excitement
killed.
about Laker games.
But, you know, I was just... It's a little scary how excited people got over this. I don't know. I don't jump up and down because somebody died, even if they are a terrible person.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
But mostly I'm like, you know, it's too bad he didn't die about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
It would have had a real impact. That maybe if he had been killed, if we had competent leadership that could have gotten him before we lied our way into illegal wars, then yes, that would have been very
He
nice.
had been on the government's hit list since '98, so it's not like
That's true.
they didn't know who he was and weren't after him already.
Yeah, I'm glad he's dead.
Good riddance.
But yeah,
I'm not going to go jump up and down in the street and
It was that same mania
be demanding to see a picture of a dead body. And by the way, how's a picture of a dead body prove that it's him?
Yeah,
Remember all the lookalikes that Hussein had?
yeah.
I mean, he was having people have like plastic surgery and shit to look more like him.
I mean, yeah, the White House claimed that they did DNA testing and all that shit, and I mean, I don't really believe everything the government tells me, but again, it's not going to really affect me or anything because we're going to keep on doing the stupid shit America's dedicated itself to do. So it's like, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Skewed a bit political there.
So we're supposed to be religious, not political.
Yeah, we're a religion. We're not supposed to dabble in politics. Don't you know that?
There's a separation of.
Have people just not eaten butter in the last, I don't know, 1,000 years?
I have to show you on a doll where they touched it.
It's hot as balls in here, so we had to leave the window open.
That's what it's all about. This is why we come to church, to come inappropriately in our pants on chairs.
For fuck's sake, do you have to die right now?
The comments made by the hosts and other participants are the opinions of the individuals and not those of any corporate entity. All data and information provided in this program is for informational purposes only. The Church of Awesome makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, currentness, suitability, or validity of any information in this program and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis. If you like what you've heard in today's sermon, come visit us at churchofawesome.com or follow us on Twitter at COA Podcast.